So which means that
Yes, yeah.
business leaders need to consider how they can approach, they can apply creative thinking across every layer of the organization, the business.
Yeah, that's it, Jeff. Why do you think this is very important at this point?
At this point, like I said earlier, the world is being led by people that are applying this sort of thought process. I mean, look at the most profitable company in the world. Who is the richest person in the world right now? It's Elon Musk. What's shaping Elon Musk's wealth? He's behind the Tesla, the self-driving cars and the electric cars, essentially. He's behind the innovations in building spaceships. But what has allowed him to do this? A very big part of it is his out-of-the-box creative thinking.
Yeah. Welcome to the Creative Industry Talk. My name is Eddie Okila, and of course my guest this morning in the studio is the one and only Geoffrey Ekongot, as we know him. And of course, we're supposed to be joined by one Faizo Chiwewa from Baimba. Faizo is still on his way and is definitely going to be joining us on the program. Jeff, welcome back to the Creative Industry Talk. How are you doing? How have you been?
I'm good, Eddie. Thank you very much for hosting me once again.
You're welcome, and it's been a while. So today's topic, Jeff, takes us back to discussing the issues that are very pertinent to you and me, issues of creativity. And I want the team to just put that topic up there so that we can just have everybody as part of the conversation. We're talking about the cultural and creative industry in Uganda. But more especially, we want to unleash the transformative power of culture and creativity for the local and cross-border development. This conversation is heavily inspired by the New Africa-France Summit. The French people are saying we have a new relationship we're forging going forward. And the relationship we have now, it's an equal 50-50 relationship where it's no longer we are the only superpower, we give you everything you just received. They're saying, no, we're going to do trade with you. And a lot of money has been, earmarked for creative industry. And COVID-19 brought, creativity to the forefront of many things. And I just want to say this, that the cultural creative, industry have gained a lot of recognition in our economy in the recent times, and its contribution in terms of, output value and job creation has been heavily recognized all across the world. The CCIs, as we call them, have built around the concept of creativity. Most companies are now becoming more creative to try and put these things together, which actually is closely related to the concept of innovation. That every single person out there is now very innovative, every company out there is very innovative. That said, Jeff, it brings us to a conversation today. First of all, marketing our culture and positioning our culture for this kind of, discussion that we're having today. What is your understanding of culture, and how can we best market it to suit the creativity that the industrial, economy is looking for at this point in time?
Thank you, Eddie. This is a very interesting opportunity that you mentioned about the New France-Africa relationship. And I think it's a great opportunity for Uganda and Africa as a whole. And well, culture is about yesterday, today, and the future.
Yeah.
And it gives us an opportunity to share a bit of ourselves from the past and the present, and obviously the future.
Yeah.
And I am very excited about the new France-Africa relationship.
Yeah.
I'm just concerned whether this relationship is genuine. We're yet to find out.
Yeah.
A lot of usually such announcements can either be PR or some kind of rebrand of colonial power, former colonial powers.
Point of view, yes.
Yeah, but the question whether it's a real holistic rebrand which involves action or just face is something for us to find out.
Yeah.
And it will be a great opportunity for us to test this new relationship.
Yeah.
I think it's an opportunity for us to reposition in many ways.
Yeah.
Both on an individual level and as a country on a political level.
Yeah.
But for the creative industries, I think this is a huge opportunity. I hope they can set up systems and programs the way some other countries have already done. Like I see the US government has lots of programs in which they work closely with Ugandans. I think it will be a great opportunity to see real active programs that engage the creative industries, where we get to play and we get to work with them and of course tap into what they have developed over the years using our resources and of course their resources.
Yes. Yes. Jeff, I want to just take you straight to, and then I want to read this out. I was doing a lot of research about this area, and of course we're talking about the cultural and creative industries in Uganda. And also, of course, in Africa. I mean, given the discussion the French is bringing right now, that is sparking a lot of, discussion around whether it is genuine or not. But there has been a lot of money pumped in the Francophone countries around creativity. They have developed so much. Faizo Chiwewa, who is here to join us on the show, talked about last week. A lot of the theaters have been developed. A lot of the stages have been developed for, if you go to Francophone countries, they are way ahead of, with their heart compared to the Anglophone countries that don't have. And so this presents a very good opportunity for us. But I want to just pick this from a discussion that happened this year when COVID-19 started in 2021. And our finding out is that the cultural and creative industry have gained a lot of recognition for their economic contribution in terms of output value and job creation. The creative industries are built around the concept of creativity, which is closely related to the concept of innovation. Creative industries are designed or distinguished by the technological and soft innovation. You're already doing this using the digital and the stuff you've been doing. That benefits not only the sector, but also the economy as a whole. The potential of creative industry and cultural industries must be recognized going forward in 2022. And we're in 2021, closing, of course, the year. As a must, the role of the soft innovation in triggering the industrial innovation rather than just the technological advancement needs to be recognized by government world over. We're talking about these things from this perspective. My question to you, Jeff, given the new Africa, France relationship talk, how can cross-sectoral collaboration between creative culture and creative industries, and other sectors of the economy be achieved in order for us to benefit out of this?
I would like to maybe take 2 steps back.
Yes.
We need to appreciate that a relationship is a two-way street.
Yeah.
And in appreciating that a relationship is a two-way street, we need to revisit what it has been in the past.
Yeah.
In the past, I think France has perceived our culture more from the angle of more like antiquities. like things from the past. That's why in their museums they had a lot of African art that was stolen from Africa.
Yes.
And they stopped at that. But Africa is alive and well from the past to the present. Is modern works going on. There's all the arts sector very vibrant. I think the key is now to move from that point. And what does it mean to move from that point? For example, on a government level, I would love to see the old approach of, for example, city twinning. Can we have a relationship between Paris and Kampala in a more structured way? Can we have a relationship between Jinja and other cities in Jinja, Mbale, with other cities in France? On that level, it brings, for example, cultural centers in different cities in France relating with cultural spaces in Uganda. That brings the local artists directly thinking of how to work with another local artist in another city in France. That means more activities that engage people in a more active manner. If the city of Kampala, within the city authorities, is planning activities with the city of Paris, and their calendar of activities includes activities where they engage us, that's more practical. We can start knowing, okay, beginning 2022, there's a festival in Paris, or there are 5 festivals where Ugandan artists have been booked to perform. And the same thing happening. There's French artists that we expect on our entertainment calendar. We have the Baimba Festival. Can we expect to see French artists participating there? That's a more realistic and practical way. When we talk about sharing creative and spaces and innovations from Ugandans and the French people, those guys have a lot of funding for say, startups. And there are a lot of innovators here who want to partner with innovators in France. Can we create some kind of bridge for that to happen? One of the biggest alternative spaces to the Silicon Valley is in France. There's the former rail station in France that was converted into a startup hub trying to rival Silicon Valley. Could be an opportunity where we could have innovators in Uganda being given space to incubate their businesses there. And instead of us working in silos, I think it would be nice to initiate programs that bridge these sorts of things immediately, so, you know, and I'm looking forward to seeing calls for applications to Ugandans participate in programs in France. I'm looking forward to seeing the same where French innovators or creative people, filmmakers, working with Ugandans to make films, to create music. Those sorts of things would be really a good start.
Okay. On that note, Jeff, do you think that from a Ugandan point of view, are we ready for that kind of innovation and collaborations? Have we been creating our work in line with that? Our industries here appreciating that the creative economies, the cultural and creative economies in Uganda are actually far more important to benefit that they can support? Do you see the sense of that from where you sit today?
That's a good question. I think readiness is a process. And what we need to do is to start to lay a foundation for that readiness. What does this readiness to collaborate mean? It means, one, to understand what the expectations of the French are in working with us. And it means also what the expectations of Ugandans are in working with the French, because if the relationships are being very loose, I think it starts with laying that foundation. The foundation means setting some sort of standards, setting some requirements, and making these known, and then getting to that stage where we actually get to collaborate.
Okay. I want to just take you straight, Jeff, to my next question. By connecting these creative sectors to other sectors of the local economy, like you've talked about, if the cities here, the municipalities here can start, first of all, interacting within ourselves. Like Jinja interacts with Kampala, Kampala collaborate with the, Lira, on Gulu, on Arua, and Barara, and you go to Fort Portal, like what we're seeing right now, if there is this collaborations happening, then the cities become connected, these intersectors, begin to give a lot more meaningful discussions before we even think about going to France or to interact with those in France. But my question, therefore, and the background I want to give is that by connecting these creative sectors to other sectors of the local, economy and fostering the interactions between us, like you've talked about, or between them, a strong, agglomerations of local connections and communication and interaction begins to work. But I have a question here, Jeff. This in return can eventually translate into local growth, like you've talked about, in development, and it will help us to move. But my question is, what can government locally here and internationally, or local government, do to encourage such collaborations going forward? Yes, you've talked about the intersection, but what can they do going forward? Because that has not been done.
Very true. Like I mentioned, the first step is to initiate some kind of structured programs. For example, I've worked in the art space for a while, and I've realized Ugandans, we tend to do things last minute.
Yeah.
And I've also observed that in Europe and the US, they plan festivals years in advance. And I've seen from our own festivals here, most times the planning space is very limited.
Yes.
If the government is committed and they're interested in making this happen, they need to start thinking way ahead. Our problem is most of our planning is structured around the financial years, but some of these large-scale projects in the art space can take 2 years to plan, 3 years to plan.
Yeah.
But it would be a good idea if there's, for example, dedicated departments to the cultural industries or the creative sector in each city council or municipality to initiate programs that then can be shared internationally. So that, for example, these kinds of new relationships with France, they could be able to interface with these programs and know, okay, the city of Mbale, for example, has an Mbalu Festival, and every year it happens on this date. And what opportunities there for us? Do we need to send tourists there? Do they need to book? What accommodation slots are available in the city of Mbale? How many people can they host? How big is the festival? If we can host 10,000 people, should we be preparing for how many Ugandans are expected to be there? How many French people should be prepared to send to Mbale for that festival? Yeah. You see, this takes a lot of planning, and people don't like to come and then find they can't. They have no accommodation. They don't have enough places to eat. These are things that the city needs to play a role in actively to help to facilitate, because this is the foundation of the art space. Every time you see a concert happening or any kind of festival, people have to sleep, people have to eat, flights will happen, security has to be there. This is not something that the people in the art space alone can handle. The government is a very big player in this space, in ensuring people's safety, in ensuring there's enough accommodation. That means motivating entrepreneurs to invest in the ecosystem. So the key role of the government is to lay a foundation for the ecosystem in which the third parties can now play a role in. That's the whole essence. If they can be, if they can appreciate the wider picture, the ecosystem, and the role they have to play in the ecosystem, then they start on their part. Then it's easier for the arts players to just do their part. But most of us in the art space, if it's a crowd, we're ready to do something. But if we're ready to do something and our customers are coming and they have nowhere to sleep, then that's the problem. They have nowhere to eat, and then that's the problem.
I want to pick that from a local point of view, Jeff, just before we wind up this first part of the show and take a break. Do you see the sense that the local authorities, the local leaders, the local government in such areas are actually interested in trying to do some of these things? I mean, we've seen just Fort Portal in recent times. There's been a a big thing that happened in Fort Portal, and I, reading from all the feedbacks and the outcomes, that the hotels were all fully booked, everything was fully booked, there was no space, which means for a whole weekend, there was a good amount of contribution that came from, creative economy to the city of Fort Portal, and the local authorities there should be able to share this with other local authorities in the areas to say, you know what, you can harness this, and this brings in the income, it brings in it improves the economy of the area, but also it adds into the national basket when we're talking about this. Do you think that people who are in position of leadership in local government see this opportunity, or they don't? Because we can talk about it from the the central government point of thinking, but if the local government point of leadership is not thinking about this, is not welcoming this, then this cannot happen. What's your sense of that?
Like that event that you mentioned, this in Fort Portal City, should be a test of the pudding.
Yeah.
It should, imagine on the very first edition, the entire city is booked out. What will happen in the second or third one? So that means the city authorities should use that as an opportunity for city planning. And no, okay, imagine on the first one we were able to sell out. What about when more people pick interest? I mean, more people coming, will we be able to accommodate them? This is an opportunity for them to see the bigger picture. Yeah. And the individuals not playing their role because maybe sometimes they don't see it. Sometimes means it's not enough information. Yeah. But I think for us who are involved in the creative industries, we need to start sharing more information. What sort of information do the city authorities need to justify certain decisions? For example, they need to have projections on revenue.
Yeah.
Projections, for example, on how many jobs will be created by just a single event. What level of income? Can we be able to map out the monetization touch points across a single festival? Yeah. From the saloon lady who is going to prepare people going to the festival, yeah, to the Nenalongo who is serving porridge and katogo in the neighborhood, yeah, as people are heading to the festival, to all the taxis that will be busy trying to ferry people to this festival. There are hundreds of monetization touch points that can be mapped out to justify investment in that space. And if the city authorities are interested in understanding what these projections can be, they can engage the people in the arts sector. Mm-hmm. We're here, and there's so many of us out there planning. Events promoters know these things. They can engage them and involve them in their planning. I rarely see situations where the city authorities invite people in the art space to go and attend a city council meeting, yes, and offer input on planning for the creative space. They should do that more often. Yeah. If they believe that, for example, tourism is going to be a key factor, they need to involve the players in the tourism space, yeah, to come and inform them what the opportunities are and what they should do on their end. Yeah. I can't blame them sometimes when they don't make the right decisions because they don't understand the space, yeah, very well. But if they work with us, with those in the space, I think that's how we shall be able to build this into something meaningful.
Wow. Thank you very much, Jeff. And thank you very much, everybody out there following the Creative Industry Talk this morning or this afternoon, this evening, depending on which part of the world you're actually watching the program from. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, Jeff and I possibly will be joined by Faizo Chiwewa. We'll continue the discussion on the question of, what role does art play in promoting our culture. If you're a cultural man, or if you have your culture out there, begin to think about it. And Jeff can also take your questions and, to be able to answer them if you have any. So please share with us far and wide. We are live on YouTube, on Twitter, and of course on our website. Please go there, subscribe, share far and wide. We'll be right back after this break. This is Creative Industry Talk. This relationship, this new direction from France, actually should be taken serious by the Africans.
Definitely. I think if the French were not really engaged and ready to, to create this new paradigm with all the young people in Africa, they wouldn't have invested so much into this whole conversation. I think what is important is really to recognize the fact that France has had a lot of trouble in Africa, given its Francophone territory in West Africa. And then it had also had a lot of disconnection from the Anglophone, the Lusophone, and the Spanish-speaking African countries. So when you find the investments that France make in the Francophone Africa are not the same investments or opportunities that are in the Anglophone Africa and the Lusophone Africa, when we talk about the Portuguese-speaking African countries like Mozambique and Angola. So they are realizing that, okay, if we have people in Africa, they're not only living in the Francophone African countries, but they're also living in the Anglophone countries. And I think the strategy here, this is my observation, is that it's not that it's going to be a direct government engagement with young people. No, I think that's why they brought in partners like INPay, which is an investment agency. They brought in like AFD, which is the French development agency. They brought in Organization of Institute Francophonie countries. They brought in Institut Français. These are the gatekeepers. These are the people who are going to be dealing with us, the young people. And the conversations were about, okay, what is AFD doing? And for me, it was very interesting to find that we've known AFD as a development agency for France, but investing in big businesses, infrastructure, roads, government, and projects, but they had never thought about the creative industry. And for them to have this conversation, influenced by the French policies on how to engage with the new Africa, and also realizing that their politics has not worked, but the many young people now are taking over in Mali, in Gambia, they are realizing that these young people, they don't know what's going on with them. They need to get to tap into their knowledge and see what's going on in their head so that they can also understand them as well as support them.
Welcome back from that break. This is the Creative Industry Talk. My name is Eddie Okila, Jeff Ekongot in the studio from the Tarmac Digital Agency. Of course, he's a creative brain, the man who has been in the creative industry for a while, and he understands culture, he understands, the creative industry, and he is not just a person who is talking about things that he doesn't practice. He practices on a very, day-to-day as a service, giving out to people. And of course, Faisal Chiwewa, who has gotten some technical issues, but is on his way, and we would most likely miss him on the show today, but Faisal will definitely be joining us at some point, either by the video or, live in the studio. Jeff, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. At
the point we went for a break, you were talking about cities need to pick up from there. I want to refer back to what happened. For what we're seeing that happened in the Fort Portal city, in the, I think that's southeastern, western part of the country, was born or birthed from a conversation that started in 2020. I think in January 2020, there was a Rwenzori, expo that happened in Fort Portal still. It was organized by Operation Wealth Creation. I remember attending that, and I remember being part of the people who were on the sideline conversation about creative industry was quite very heavily recognized. And I think I would like to give a big round of applause to the people in that area. In the, Fort Portal took over as a city and said, you know what, we have to do this. But not all the districts in that area were able to come together to say this is what we're going to do. But Fort Portal City in itself picked up that, and you can see what has happened. The kingdom has decided that we need something that happens here annually. And that was central government giving a punch to start something. I never saw it happening in other, sector, in other region of the country. Maybe it will happen. But in West Africa, these things are happening. Governments actually pay a lot of attention to, creative arts. I want to take you to another very critical aspect of, what we call cross-sectoral thinking in the creation of, an innovative workforce, like what we're seeing right now. There is a need to invest in the workforce and, for it to have a capable meaning and to be able to meet the challenges and requirements of a rapidly evolving, post-industrial knowledge. We're moving away from those days where, a person you only needed to run machines and that's it. Very few people are making these machines, and then many of us are just here to run the machines. But we're seeing that a more industrial knowledge-based economy that values the non-cognitive skills as much as the technical cognitive skills are now becoming more and more at the forefront. Arts, culture, and the creativity in education must be clearly defined, in my view. And in policy designed in order for us to improve the workforce skills suitable for the local economy and the converging, cross-feeding of this. Jeff, we've talked so much about our education system not being able to pull through some of the weight that we're talking about. But we've also discussed how can, cross-sectoral, sectors begin to interact among each other to see that if I don't have the skill developed from school, can I be trained to develop non-technical skills to be able to offer? Many of the art sector feeds a lot on this. Take, for example, this metalwork and the decorative metalwork in buildings and constructions. They get that a lot from here. My question to you is that what role can arts, culture, and creativity in education play in improving the workforce skills? You have been doing this a lot. You've been teaching a lot online.
That's a good question, and I think what you mentioned is right. We need to apply a lot of creative thinking in the workforce. However, let's just take a step back and appreciate the difference of the traditional workforce, the way they are prepared, based on our education system. We're using a more structured academic approach to preparing the workforce. And the key difference with creative thinking is that it allows people to think outside the box.
Yeah.
But what is the box? The box is the standard way of doing things. Mm-hmm. But in an era where the speed of innovation is determining who is leading, the box is no longer enough space in which to do things, which is as in a standard way to do things is no longer enough. You have to be on the creative edge. I mean, look at the traditional disciplines like marketing. There was a standard way things were done. You would expect a marketing plan, and product development would be very separate. Today, things are very much different. For example, software applications, because now technology companies are leading the world. They are the most profitable businesses. In the past, you would expect to see a marketing plan created after a product has been developed. But with creative thinking, marketers are working closely with product developers from day one, thinking, what else can we integrate? That means creative thinking needs to work with technical thinking, step by step. So the old workforce approach to applying these disciplines has been eroded, not in a bad way, but in a good way. And it means that we need to appreciate more creative thinking at every level. Basically, creative thinking is now a layer in everything. It's no longer a separate thing that is brought as an add-on, like you would bake a cake, and then you bring the icing sugar when the cake is done. Now the icing sugar is part of the baking process. Yes. So which means that business leaders need to consider how they can approach, they can apply creative thinking across every layer of the organization, the business.
Yeah, that's it, Jeff. Why do you think this is very important at this point?
At this point, like I said earlier, the world is being led by people that are applying this sort of thought process. I mean, look at the most profitable company in the world. Who is the richest person in the world right now? It's Elon Musk. What's shaping Elon Musk's wealth? He's behind the Tesla, the self-driving cars and the electric cars, essentially. He's behind the innovations in building spaceships. But what has allowed him to do this? A very big part of it is his out-of-the-box creative thinking. He believes that nothing is impossible. It believes rules are designed to be broken. And that's typically how an artist thinks. That's typically how creative people think. We try and challenge the status quo. And through that, we're able to break boundaries. That's the very reason right now it's important. Because by following norms, we've brought the world this far, the last 500 years of technology. But in the last just 20, 30 years alone, we've covered much more than has been created in the last 500 years. Because we've realized that this sort of newfound creative thinking, when applied at scale, is a superpower of sorts. And people like Elon Musk are demonstrating this every day, from the design of the cars, from the spaceships. You can imagine NASA, with all the big budgets, couldn't create awesome spacesuits. And a private company like SpaceX was able to develop much better technology than a government that has 100 times more money. That tells you the power of creative thinking. So even in Uganda, if you look at it, young people are breaking out of slums, of ghettos, of rural areas with creative thinking. If you can think of all the people who have made it in the, for example, the music industry, look at people like Bebe Cool. Their Jemvude stories tell you that without this creative thinking, they would still be there. Bobby Wine, all these people, they were previously people living in these urban slums in poverty, below the poverty line. But they've managed to break through because they've allowed their minds to get to work beyond what the academic system has provided them.
Wow. That is very interesting, Jeff. You're talking about that. I want to hear some thoughts from you out there. If you have any thoughts for Jeff, if you have a question or answer, comment, please drop it up there. We'll definitely be able to read it here and make sure that you are part of the conversation that we're having here in the studio. I want to put that question up there. If you put it up there again, the topic is about, cultural and creative industry, unleashing the transformative power of creativity for the local and cross-border development inspired by the New Africa France. When we talk about cultural, Jeff, we want people to understand, and when we say that unleashing the power of transformative, you just talked about it. Perhaps you want to break this a little bit more down, to what are today's trend and challenges that will help us to level or to even come close to tapping into this huge amount of money that France is saying we're putting into Africa for creativity. I mean, I was reading and they're saying that now the French people have put in a lot of money in the creative industry, and they're saying that the technology and the creative, industry in France is going to be the next place to be. So it's no longer going to be just about Silicon Valley as the main thing, but we're seeing that, and France is saying that Africa can tap into it. How is this quite very realistic from our point of view? But more importantly, the question I want you to tackle is that what are those, trends that are today challenging our thinking that we need to rise up to the occasion to be able to match up with these guys?
That's a good question. The challenge is this: an opportunity for us to bridge the relationship with France starts with us trying to understand the key requirements for this relationship.
Yeah.
Let me focus on the creative sector. A lot of artists, for starters, let's say musicians, we'd not like to take care of the business side of our relationships. And what do I mean? For example, you'll find an artist has no website, an artist has no structure around their affairs. When people want to book you, they have to call you, and then when they call you, you're sleeping. When you have a manager, you've not given them enough powers. You don't respect them enough to make decisions for you, because you think that because the mentality is that a manager is supposed to behave like a promoter. We're supposed to have money. We have a limited understanding of structures, essentially, that we need. But that's because we forget that business is about 80% in the creative space, and talent is usually 10 to 20%. And it means that we need to appreciate the basic structures that we need to put in place to tap into this. For example, as a musician, you need to tick the basic boxes. Have you sorted your copyright issues? Have you uploaded your music to all the right platforms where you can monetize? Do you have your own website where people can directly pay you? If you're a promoter, do you have your business structured in a proper way? Are you paying taxes? Have you cleared your tax issues? Because if you're going to, say, work with a French government institution, then you need to be a legitimate institution as well. Yeah. So you can't interface with that when you're illegitimate with a legitimate institution. Yeah. So sort out your basics and be ready to tap into the opportunity. The opportunity is there, but you cannot access it if you are not ready for it. You know, if you're an innovator in this space, do you have a pitch deck? A pitch deck, a basic document that outlines your business concept. If you're looking for a partner and someone is saying, okay, I'm opening doors so that people can come and engage with you, I'm bringing a delegation of French businessmen to hear creative entrepreneurs who have ideas. Do you have a pitch deck? Set yourself up for opportunity. Opportunity is there, but we need to set ourselves up for this opportunity. Don't let it not land in your hands and then you're not ready. It's like someone who is asking for food, but you don't even have a plate. How much can your hands hold? So get your plate ready. That's what it is. So whatever sector you're in and what your idea of setting yourself up is, go do it. Don't sleep on it.
Wow. Well, Jeff, thank you very much for that, Jeff. I think he's done a very good justice to that question, that for us to match up and to unleash the transformative power of creative thinking in the cultural space and in the creative industry, we need to be able to prepare ourselves to stand the test of time. Of course, the Creative Industry Talk is going to go for a break. When we come back, Jeff and I are going to dive to the final part of the show where we ask questions. Are we ready for some of these? What are those areas that we can pick onto? And we'll answer the question of what are the key policy areas to consider going forward. From the government of Uganda point of view, what are our thoughts? From the creative industry point of view, what are our thoughts? And how do we come together with Vino to understand whether the French are real with a new relationship in Africa, or it's not, or it's just a new rebrand of things, and things are going to be a different way. We're going to dive into it shortly after this break. Stay right there. I'll be right back after this.
If you create a space which enables people to think and thrive, that's a bonus. Before I started working officially, I used to do a lot of freelance work. And as a young freelancer, my laptop was on my back. And I didn't have an internet connection. I didn't have an office desk. It was difficult for me to work at home. So what I did is I would go and sit in a restaurant, buy some tea or breakfast, and ask for a Wi-Fi password. And then I would sit there and have my breakfast slowly, you know, as I did my work and I sent work to clients and everything, you know. But before long, lunchtime, it would be lunchtime, you know. And they would
be forced to eat also.
They would bring you a lunch menu. You see what I mean?
Yes.
So when you find a space where people can come and sit and pay for a full day.
10,000, I'm told.
Yes, you see, that is creativity.
Yeah.
Because the owner of this building or the owner of this space knows that people, there's a certain segment of the market that can't afford to rent a premises per square meter or 10 square meters or 100 square meters and pay monthly and bring their own furniture, their own internet connection, carpeting, light and everything, a working bathroom, and then lunch for staff members. So they think about it creatively and they say, how many people can this space take? 100 people per day. Okay, good. If each of those people pays 10,000 per day, and they come and have access to the internet and a nice chair and a desk and a good environment where they can concentrate and deliver. That is brilliant. That is creativity in the workplace.
Welcome back from that break. This is the Creative Industry Talk. Ed Yokela, Jeff Ekongot in the studio from the Tarmac Digital Agency. And we are talking about the power of cultural and creative industry, unleashing the power of transformative, you know, creative industry in our culture, in our creativity for cross-border, you know, development. If we're to cross borders, are we ready for it? Are we working towards that? This is inspired by the conversation that happened, you know, in France in 2021. Jeff, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Eddie.
I just want to take you straight to, you talked about the role of education, but you didn't tap that very quickly. Creativity and education. I know you talked about the traditional way of doing things. We're moving away from it. But I want to say this to you. You know, what role can we play in shaping the new structure of education going forward? Are we engaging people in education sector as creative people to say, look, we went through this process, but when we came out, we realized that some of the things we went through in school are no longer applicable. Albert Opio, for example, was here, and he said that some of the things we studied in Makerere during our studies, we didn't practice them. When we came out, people had moved on. It was not, I didn't find where to use it, so it was difficult for me to fit in with whatever I studied in the university at the time, and what was selling was about painting. So we came out knowing that as an artist, you have to paint, but things changed. You know, there were now softwares coming in. He said that they studied, by the time they're done with Makerere University, they had not yet, the computer was being introduced, as everything design was coming through computer. That means that our education system needs to be aligned to this. It also means that the policies that the policymakers are making needs to be able to foster, you know, the direction toward that, so that we can have a cross-border development, you know, inspired by, if France is saying we're now open for Africa, is Africa open to do this with France? My question to you, Jeff, what are the key policy areas that we need to consider?
Well, in regards to education, I think we need to revisit the way the system is structured. But I've seen some steps that have that have been made in that direction. I remember the School of Performing Arts at Makerere. They started engaging practitioners of performing arts in general. I have guest lectured myself at the School of Performing Arts, and they've also, I know other colleagues in the space who have also been guest lecturing there. The idea here is that education is not a silo, and knowledge is not a lake. Knowledge is a river that's continuously flowing, which means whereas curriculums have to be developed, they should be developed with a layer that continuously aligns with what's happening in the real world,
Yeah.
which means that there should be an open and a structured, active relationship with the industry in which the specific education entity is engaged in. For example, if the School of Performing Arts is teaching film or teaching drama, there should be an active plug with the filmmakers, if for those interested in film,
Yeah.
and also. Except for a few of us who had some connections and then we got invited, but there should be a formal process for filmmakers who are professional out there in the industry to participate in the education system.
Yeah.
If I want to share my knowledge with Makere, there should be a very clear system and it shouldn't be complicated. I should be able to say, I have time and I can book a slot and I can go and share my knowledge. And there should be also some kind of open mentorship program in which students can connect with industry players who are seasoned and they can book opportunities to engage them. This should be in the design. It shouldn't be out of initiative. At this point, I see it out of initiative from individual lecturers, or professors who feel the need, but it should be in the policy. It should be designed as part of the system and a very clear way in which, because when I was in Gulu a couple of months ago, lecturing, sharing knowledge with the musicians, they were asking, we want to share knowledge with academic institutions. How do we do this? Well, I was thinking, I've been there, I've done it, but I couldn't remember a clear system of how I could plug them in.
Yeah.
So meaning that there are practitioners out there, in professionals that want to share their knowledge, but I think there's not a clear system. So this needs to be designed and structured as part of policy, so that then that bridge is open and anybody can plug in.
Okay.
And if possible, they can even create incentives. For example, there are a lot of players in the creative space who are self-taught, because a lot of this knowledge was not available in academic institutions. But through practice, they have become masters. And sometimes even doing much better than what is being taught in our academic institutions. So, but there's always a void among these professionals, the void and the desire to validate their knowledge. So the idea is that the incentive should be that because the centers of learning have become the centers of validation of knowledge, they should also work with these professionals to assess the level of knowledge and validate it by either issuing academic credentials or some kind of honorary credentials, so that people also feel like, oh, if I share my knowledge, I get something back in return. I think that would be a beautiful opportunity to be introduced in the academic policies.
Wow. I think, thank you very much, Jeff. I want to take you straight. I know we are hastening to the close of the program. But there's something that you've mentioned that is quite very interesting that I want to actually, go back to. People who have been practicing, some of these things coming much more stronger than people who have studied theoretically and cannot practice. That came out very clear. But are we in the creative space harnessing the power that we have to say, look, let us go out there and engage the policymaker. Let us make a proposal to the policymaker to say, look, what you have is good, but what we are having on this end is much better and can help improve what you have, And what I mean here is that the creative minds, people in the culture and cultural space promotion, people who are in the creative industry, production, are able to come together and say, let's go and engage Ministry of Education and Sports and say, look, in this area, this is our proposal to you. And then engage people in the national curriculum to say, look, in this area, this is what we have for you. Are we seeing this? Why are people in the creative industry, like you've mentioned, the musician when you're in Gulu, in northern part of Uganda, and sharing knowledge, are not able to interact and interface with these people? What do you think is the problem, and how can we improve it going forward?
I think the problem is the way government is designed. The government is designed to work around mandates, and these mandates are very specifically defined in a certain way. So whereas an individual government employee may appreciate ideas coming from a certain group, they have no clear way of integrating them unless these ideas follow protocol. They follow the procedures laid out by government. And in the past, we've not had a very clear structured relationship between the creative sector with government. But now it's unfolding. It's actually happening as we speak. Yeah. Several platforms have been created, and they are now interfacing with the Ministry of Gender. And I think it's the right time to have that sort of discussion. Otherwise, before there was no clear way. I was part of those people that have engaged different government institutions on different levels, but I realized that was the problem. The problem is that mandate is defined in a specific way, and it's very hard for them to introduce anything outside of that system. But with now an official platform through which, like now associations are there, associations interface with the forums, and these forums interface with the government, with the ministry. So there's a chain of command that you can follow, and this is a great time to have that sort of conversation, and it's the best time to start such initiatives.
Okay, that said, Jeff, given this new relationship that the French people are talking about, shouldn't it be that also shouldn't it be that we, or rather, should we not have a conversation that spring out from France also holding a conversation with more governments to actually engage them in Africa, to say, look, we've met the creative people, we've met the young people, but now we need to have a cross-sectoral, sort of conversation where the key people or the key people in the creative sector and cultural sector come together to meet with the people who are in government, who run the government, to understand, because this new relationship, if it is not understood by many of our government or system in Africa, we're not going to, take advantage of this, because there's a gap there between the communication. The creative people locally here in the government, for example, in Uganda, are not sort of like in sync together. Much of our things, for example, in Uganda, are done in a way that we have an award right now. The award is happening in 1 month. What is the essence of the award? What are we intending to achieve with this award? Is there a check and balance that says, okay, fine, we want to award, but how are we awarding the award? How did we arrive at that? So we find that most of our things are happening just for a short period of time to meet a certain demand. And so the guys we want to interact with, the new relationship we're talking about with the French, they do things in a much more systematic way. So if Stella Tal, for example, based in France, is going to be awarded, okay, or let's say, people like Cleopatra, who has been acting for some time, are going to be awarded, what does this award means to the creative sector that also award people in France, for example? What does it mean? Do they recognize it or they don't? What is it that we're trying to achieve? So my question to you as we close the show is to say, shouldn't we have intergovernmental, the France and African government holding a lot more conversation to bridge the gap so they can pick a lot more information from the creative minds and the creative sector and the promoters of the creative industries, which are basically unleashing the transformative power we're seeing right now? COVID-19 has brought to the forefront the importance of more and more now using creativity and the creative minds to actually lead the way, not necessarily politics.
The new relationship between France and Africa is like a door opening. What we've had is the pronouncements.
Yes.
Now the next step is for us to see specific programs outlined. For example, on a local level, I expect to visit the French Cultural Center's website and expect to see programs that have been lined up. Yeah. Well, government has this role to play, but I'll speak like for the private sector.
Yeah.
I think for us to engage, we need to know, we see some kind of programs that will be presented by the French government through their either the embassy or their cultural attaché that communicate this new relationship in practice. We need to see that these are the opportunities so that we know, oh, okay, because they are saying they're opening more doors. This new relationship is about opening more doors. So which doors were closed in the past? Let's first outline which doors. One, visas. Two, licenses to perform, for example, for musicians. Yeah. 2, 3, for painters and artists. An opportunity to exhibit in French museums and French art galleries. Can we see these doors open? If I am an artist, what does it mean for me? An artist in Uganda, can I now start preparing to organize an exhibition in Paris? What does it mean for me if I want to start preparing an exhibition in Paris? If I am a promoter and I want to start organizing a concert in Paris, what does it mean for me? These are the questions and answers that we should be expecting, both from the government. Our government should also be now aligning themselves with these sorts of things and trying to create opportunities for our people, but also on the French side. These are the things they need to start showing us. Yeah. That, you know, these are the doors that we have opened. You have this door number 1 that gives an opportunity to performers to work alongside French artists to have concerts. Yeah. Our artists can organize exhibitions, and these are the rules, and this is how you can participate. These sorts of things, they need to be clear for us to say now the doors are actually open. Yeah. And this is a really new relationship.
Wow. I like that summary which Jeff has just brought. Thank you very much. I think that's a very important, part of this conversation, that yes, they are saying the doors are open, the new relationship is open, but is it open for me to collaborate with a French, person or anyone from the Francophone territories? Because it's not just France as a France, there are territories, you have Guadeloupe, you have all these islands where people are doing things, you have some part of South America, you have, where they speak French. I mean, these are the French territories. If they're saying that the relationship now open, is it open for us to do this? That's a question that we need to be able to have going forward. And of course, I want to say thank you very much, Jeff, for accepting to come to the program today and to be able to contribute towards this conversation. I want to read a few things from some people here. And it says, Killer, thank you very much for bringing Jeff to the program. I love the perspective, and the context being put into place by Jeff. We miss Faizo Chiwewa today. The two would have given us a very fantastic show. Overall, Jeff has nailed it. My question to Jeff is, he speaks very fluent and passionate about these things, but we're not seeing them engage government at a certain level. He said he has been engaging government. At what level has he been engaging government? Or he was in Gulu just because the general was also paying the bills? Jeff, now that's a question for you. Coming. Let me just read another one from here. To pick it up from there. As I see, this one says, Killer, thank you very much for bringing Jeff to the show, and thank you, Creative Industry Talk. These are a meaningful conversation we should be having. My question to Jeff is, yes, we want government to participate, but are the government willing to participate? Do they understand where we are coming from? Creative people have always been used whenever they are needed. But when there is a problem or when we are suffering, nobody opens the door for us. And we have tried to engage these people, doors are always closed. The door is like open as and when they need you. When you need them, you can't find them. Jeff could shed more light quickly on how we can maybe creatively engage with these people. That's a very interesting question and perspective. I never thought about it that way. So over to you, Jeff.
Let me start with the second question.
Yes.
I'll go back to the first one.
Yeah.
With the second one, it's true to a very large extent that the doors were not, they're not open. They are open conveniently when they need.
Yes.
In the past, I think that has been largely true. But lately, the government is actively expressing interest, and both in human resource, but also in committing resources. Yeah. I have seen that firsthand. For example, they have employed people that actually understand the art space, the creative industries, and these people are now involved in interfacing with people who they've worked with in the past in the private sector.
Yeah.
So which is a good step, because that was part of the problem in the past, where you would go and approach a commissioner and it's totally blank about what you're talking about, and you could see that they had very limited understanding of what was happening in the creative industries, and they had little motivation to implement any of these ideas that were being proposed to them. But now they have put this in place. Operation Wealth Creation has committed lots of resources. It's a government institution, and we've seen these resources flow. The words you've mentioned, apart the sponsorships and all these initiatives they are sponsoring, are a testament to that. And I think I am optimistic as we stand right now.
Okay.
Yeah, regarding the first question, how do we what do we do with government? How do we interface with them? Government is a slow giant, and sometimes things don't move as fast. But we have engaged them on many fronts, and we've seen changes. I mean, personally, I started as way back as when we still had the old copyright law. Yeah. And we were very active, organized many workshops, forums, and closely worked with government people to work on the revisions. And a big part of the current copyright law was from the work that we put in, because we set expectations and they listened. Well, we did not cover 100%, but things can't be solved entirely in one go. I mean, we are a developing country, and the struggle continues in one way or the other. But the government has been making baby steps, and the baby steps so far are not bad. We hope for more, and we've engaged them, and we've continuously, I mean, those meetings, it's them who initiated them, and then they invited us to come and share, which is a good thing, because in the past they were not even initiating any. We were the ones initiating, and they were very slow to respond. But now they are initiating meetings and inviting us to contribute and to play a role. That's a very big step, and I think that's we will see a lot of results with that, and we have started to see the fruits.
Wow. Well, thank you very much, Jeff. We're coming to the end of the show. I want to just put up that topic so that we can remind you of what we've been discussing. And of course, the topic and the conversation continues. Cultural and creative industries, unleashing the power of transformative, unleashing the transformative power of culture and creativity for local cross-border development. When we talk about local cross-border development, what is it that we're looking at? What do we get from Kenya? What do Kenya get from us? If you're going to Congo, which is a francophone country, how are you going to communicate with them? What are you getting from them? What are they getting from you? It has to be a two-way traffic. Like Jeff talked about, it's not a one-way traffic, that it has to be one. And of course, people are asking, are the French conversation true? Should we hold it to them? Does it hold water? That's something that Jeff has said, we will continue to see whether this conversation will open up, whether the doors will open up for us to have, some of this conversation going forward. What does it really mean? You said it is just a door open, invitation. Now we need to see, when you enter the sitting room or the living room, what is there waiting.
What is available for us to partake.
Yes, and also if we open the door for them like we've always opened, are we ready to also invite them in? Because some of the things that somebody has asked the question says, well, the French may be talking very good right now, but it needs to be a reality. It does not need to be, talk which is up there. And somebody has made a very interesting review. In fact, a comment here on the, says, Eddie Okela, thank you very much. I have a comment, and I think I need to put it up there. Notice that the Kampala geopolitical talk was quite very interesting, but I found it lacking in many ways. One, it was more political than it's supposed to be a reality to achieve some of the things they are talking about. We wanted to see more of the local people coming. I would have appreciated to see a person like Jeff on a platform, but not to see the old guards that we have seen before, ministers hosting the event. Why are we not putting that's the first phase where I saw that the organizational French was lacking. They need to open it, and they need to open the door. I think I agree with them. I think that the Kampala geopolitical talk, which is a global discussion, that brings all this perspective together. In my view, it was also very uptown. It was it was
Elitist.
good. Yeah, elitist. I could see the ministers and the talk they're talking about up there were not really coming down to address some of the things that we're talking about, and I found that very interesting. I gave my feedback to the director of Alliance, and I said, when I had a small chat with him, I told him, well, I think it was good, but in my view, it was too uptown, and it was more political than the reality of things. And we've seen so much of that, in my view. I don't know whether
I agree,
we
totally.
want to continue seeing the same thing. So if the French people are talking about the new relationship, in my view, I think the door needs to be open for, you know, a few things. And I like what this person is saying. I would love to see people like Jeff on the stage.
I think the
you
conversation is just beginning,
Yes.
and they are laying the foundation. Usually it's top to bottom
Yes.
approach.
Yes.
So it starts with setting the pace from government to government,
Yeah.
and at that level, and then eventually it will filter down
Yeah.
to the sort of conversations we are expecting to the grassroots.
Wow. Well, Jeff, thank you very much. Your final parting shot today, what should we take from you? The two things that, or three things that we can take from this conversation, if you would look into the camera and just give it to us.
I think we should prepare for opportunity. And to prepare for opportunity is actual work that you need to put in. If you haven't put in the actual work to prepare for opportunity, then it will come and go. Or those who are ready will come and take it. So if you want to tap into this opportunity, be ready. If you're a filmmaker, have scripts ready. Have a business structure ready. If you're an artist, be ready to interface with international events. Do you have a technical writer? Do you have a booking agent? Do you have a manager? Do you have the basics in place? So if opportunity is here, be ready for the opportunity. I think that's my parting shot. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff. And we want to toast here and say, you know, from us here, we always have to do this nicely and spread the love, like Pastor Mugabe said. From us here, thank you very much for coming to the program and for, you know, doing justice to this topic.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to more, you know, coming up. And
I appreciate hosting me and sharing the conversation on the creative sector.
Thank you very much. And to all of you guys out there, Creative Industry Talk has come to our end today. And until next week, we want to say stay creative, stay creating, and stay focused. Stay away from, you know, the risk of this disease called, you know, coronavirus. We don't know so much about it. So the creative people have to find the creative ways of navigating, you know, coronavirus. Until then, Edio Killer, Geoffrey, Jeff Ekongot signing out, and we're missing Faizo Chiwewa. Until next time, stay focused.
And now DIT, that's the reason why DIT is coming in, because we've tried to create this awareness that the designers or the tailors must be supported in this industry, and also other stakeholders. Because being a fashion president, I'm not just talking about designers being a designer, but all the industry I'm talking about, the people who supply us machines. We have Kiembe people, Kiembe sewing machines. We have the people supplying us with fabrics. We have people teaching. We need journalists, people who can talk right about fashion, present nice pictures, not the pictures that people aim at, taking knickers for the models. That's not what we are looking at. We are trying to address it nicely and properly. So the reason why I'm doing that, abantu basobole okwekiririza that guno omulimu gwa bbeeyi. DIT has already assessed us, and many other centers that have been put outside there for people, the tailors who are already skilled, to go and be assessed so they can be accredited. If you have good thoughts, maybe you have a birowozo ebirungi you want to table in the parliament, you can as well be able to stand as a parliamentary, as an MP. You get a point. But before, luli babade batuita omutunzi na abo batunzi, like minimizing. When you fail exams, try okutunga. It's not for failures. This is for really genuine people with brains, because there's a lot of mathematics, there's so much geometry, statistics in clothing. Come on, you cannot fail elsewhere and think you're going to try. You try it this side.
Yeah. Welcome to the Creative Industry Talk. My name is Eddie Okila. On this fine particular day where we get to discuss, the performing arts in Uganda, all across Africa, and of course, looking into the new Africa-France relationship. What does it really mean to the performing art? Of course, we are going through, the series of discussing the new French relationship with Africa, or the new Africa-French relationship. I don't know which one the other one makes sense, but yes. And of course, to join me in this discussion this morning is a resident panelist. He was here last week. He broke quite a number of things down for those of you who are creative and in the creative art industry. Faizo Chiwewa is the founder and artistic director of Bayimba Cultural Foundation, straight out of Kampala to the rest of the world. Is the foundation doing great stuff? Bayimba for many of the festivals they've been holding all these years. And of course, Faizo is more qualified to be part of this conversation. Faizo, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Eddie.
Yes, and good to have you here. You traveled from the island back to Kampala this morning. You ran into some very interesting things with the policeman controlling traffic. You are the one driving. How did that go?
No, it was good. Things you do for friends, just to get on the show.
You are trying to be creative with the...
No, actually, you know how it is with the morning traffic on Mukono, Ginger Road. It's really busy. And then I was trying to be here on time, but, I didn't manage. But anyway, I'm here.
Well, welcome back to the program.
Thanks.
We want to start the program from a very interesting point of view, Faizo. I mean, we are on the series of discussing the new Africa-France relationship. What does it really mean from the creative art industry? And this time round, we are looking at the performing arts. Performing arts, many of you made it to Montpellier, for that conference 2021 summit. And many of the people who are there are people who we believe were representing our own interest. But particularly, what does this relationship mean to people who are in the performing arts industry? I mean, you are a programmer.
As we talked about it last week, it's really very important that we look at the relation as a meant to be two-way, not to be like, okay, we are all looking up to France as the bread giver, but we also have to start baking our own bread and maybe build some bakeries. And this is where I think the relationship is really about offering the opportunities for us, the programmers, and not only in Uganda, but the rest of the continent. And as we said last time, that really the idea of opening it up to the Anglophone Africa is a very good opportunity to kind of balance the investment that the French have done in the past. In one way, one would say that it has been a guilt initiative because of what has happened in the past by the French. But at the same time, I think for me as a person and as a programmer, I don't see the bad intentions of what the government, the French government now is trying to do, because to be honest, they have their share of problems as well. But if they look at Africa as a way of engaging with the young people and investing in those young people, I think we should give them some credit. And I think for us as programmers, it's really a good opportunity that we are going to be able to engage at a kind of a leveled ground with the rest of the programmers from the French-speaking countries.
Okay. Talking of that, Faisal, Ugandan art, of course, I've been at the forefront of coming up with new things, and we're discussing the emerging and the rising influence of the African art on the global stage and recognition that is coming along with it. What does this really mean from this relationship going forward? Do you think that we're headed to something good? Are we being given the right due, recognition that we need, or the world is just giving us, they say, oh, it's nice, it's good, good, but we're not good. Are we really good that we can now compete on the global stage?
I mean, we've been working. When you look at the history of the performing arts here in Uganda, it's had its, Himalaya kind of process, like up and downs. And this was due to, some of the challenges. Some were political, some were social, some have been economical, but also, I think, technical in a way, that most of the challenges we've faced are because our peers are not technically capacitated to take the industry ahead. And most of the people are really, they find themselves by chance or by effort to be artists or musicians, and they don't have the technical knowledge or the technical skills that they need to be better. They learn along the way, because we've seen some success stories, and some of the people who are really making an effort to do better, to be at the level where they should be, or better than what they should be. And but when you look at the history, that the performing arts were good in the 70s and the 60s, and of course during the war between the late 70s and early 2000 or early 19s, there was nothing much going on, because we are kind of in a very unstable environment. A lot of people lost their interest in the arts, and they moved on to other things, or they migrated. As it's the same thing now, we could see with COVID, most of the people that have been locked down for 2 years, just within this period of 2 years, they have kind of migrated to other avenues, because they could not survive this lockdown and the idea that they have no opportunity to do performances. So the same thing, I think, will be happening in the near future. If we want to present art to the French market, to the French audience, what are we going to deliver? And I think that's a question of not only we, the programmers, because we just program content. I'm also always looking out for good content. If it's not good, I don't program it. So if there is no content, because people have left the industry to other things because of the situation as we've all experienced it, what are we going to do? And as going back to our conversation last week, is to see that we can, now we know the opportunities are there. Can we start working towards preparing ourselves to be able, when the opportunity arises, that we are able to deliver the content that is needed to be.
Wow. So do you think that the artist, the performing art, talents are working towards this? Do they understand what this relationship means? Do they understand what France is talking about? Are we taking advantage of this conversation to say, hey, wait, there's now a new market open for us here, new market open in the Francophone countries that we need to be able to take advantage of. We need to be able to start working and preparing the content to actually speak across these boundaries that we were not doing before. Do you see the sense of that?
Yes, you'll be very surprised. Not necessarily for the French, I would say. I don't think everyone now I know working on something happening is because of they are aware of the new relation between France and Africa. I think not so many people know. They heard about, if they did hear about, they heard about the conference, they heard about who went there, but they don't know what came out of it. And it's not really yet public, the information of the outcome is not yet in the public domains. So what is happening here, you will be actually surprised that there is a lot of effort going in creating content. There are so many people doing a lot of stuff here, amazing stuff, and you'll be surprised that in the near future, I think this environment, this COVID situation, has offered an opportunity to so many creative entrepreneurs, creative artists, not all art forms, you know, but at least the theater has been very much marginalized in that case. But when you look at film, music, when you look at fashion, when you look at, new media art forms like visual arts, and there's a lot of stuff that guys have been creating. So we are very happy, and we are very open, lucky that people have not really taken their time to not do anything, but they have really created stuff. And I'm also surprised to see that even contemporary dancers are going back to the studio to start working. You know, theater is also starting to pick up, but though very much online. So there's a lot of content. I'm not really worried about that. I think what I'm worried about is the process of knowing how to go about engaging with other francophonic people.
Okay. Sometimes, Faisal, when we create content like this, the content is created for a very small niche market that doesn't cut across the wider perspective of the market. And so if this new relationship that France is talking about is open, it means that new opportunity for the performing arts in Uganda, in Kenya, in East Africa, in West Africa, in North Africa, and in Central Africa to now start cross-culturally bringing their art form together, from the Anglophone countries to the Francophone countries. We're now not just doing, this is Francophone, everything is about the French-speaking people, and then if you don't speak French, it's up to you. And then it's about the English-speaking people, and if you don't speak English, it's really up about you. That's how things have been going on. But I think that ice is being broken right now. So do you think that we understand the importance of this, and we are beginning to create content in line with this relationship or not? And what should be done from the programmer's point of view?
But I think if you really look at the trend of content creation here, you realize that there are those that have already transcended this smaller market that we are looking at. Because to be honest, Uganda is not a market for theater. Okay, maybe downtown theater, but when you go to the uptown theater, there's no market for it. So where do entrepreneurs or artists or creators in theater look for? They go to the Sundance. They go to the Sinophonic countries, that is the Chinese, the Asian-speaking countries. They go to the Lusophone, to the Francophone. They look at the Anglo. They don't look at very much, of course, the Anglophone, but they really trying to tap into. When you go to the Sinophonic countries, all the Asian countries, you'll be surprised to see how many Ugandans are there. And one time I was very surprised to find a group of friends who were doing traditional dance, this Baksimba, touring China for 6 months, non-stop, like 350 shows. And I was like, how do you guys and they're there. So content has been transcending. It's just that sometimes people are in a certain environment and they are not giving others an opportunity or to get to know about it and to tap into it. And that's also, I wouldn't call it an issue for many, but I think it would be a good opportunity. If someone knows that there is a market for content here, you could invite others to tap into it. So that's maybe what is a little bit lacking. But really, there is a very good, interesting, diversification of distribution of content here. And many people really want to sell their content because they know they are not going to sell here. Even if they even the filmmakers, they're making film, they sell them to South Africa. They're writing scripts, they want to go to Sundance because that's where they know that content is understood, content is appreciated, content is from its raw perspective. Sometimes people, when they see a film, they just see a film. They don't look at the process. They don't really imagine the process. So if you are part of this, understanding, trying to figure out how to deliver something to the market, and you don't know who is able, or people are not able to understand the process, then you have to go to those who understand it. And that's why you find most Ugandans are now, and I'll say this again, I always find it very sad to see that so many Ugandans have disappeared to Europe and America. People who would be great artists here, they have disappeared, you know, and they are living there. Of course, some of them are continuing their careers, others are not because of, you know, the situation, different environments. But it would be really, really sad to see that many more young people are moving out of the country to go and perform in Europe and America and Asia, because there's nothing they can do here. So that content, if it was produced here and developed here and distributed from here, it would give us also a boost in our own content development.
Wow. Well, thank you very much, Faisal. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, Faisal and I will return discussing something around about the understanding of the relationship between France and Africa, the new relationship. What does it mean? We're breaking down the performing arts. When we talk about the performing arts, you know, market or, you know, industry, what does it really mean? Who fits where? What is it? What does it mean? Because we're talking about this thing as a blanket statement, but you're going to find some people are still lost, don't know what to do. But also, we will talk about, you know, this new Africa-France relationship. What does it mean? Is it making sense to most people who are actually in this industry? Do they understand what we're talking about? As the French people also done, the French government done much to actually come out to, you know, further this discussion. How has it been received from the African countries' perspective? Do the African leaders understand this? Are they seeing it as a way of making, you know, creating this industry to collaborate, or they're seeing it as a way of political gain, you know?
But also to add on to that, I think also we need to understand that when we talk about France, we're not talking only about France, the country. But France also has its territories, you know, like Reunion, Dominica, whatever, all these French speaking under the, you know, they call them territories. They're still under France, and they have like next, I think early next month, I'll be going to a French territory, which is in the Indian Ocean. So you find that there are also other opportunities. Let's not only look at Paris.
Because it's open up for everyone, and of course we want to come back and have the discussion. So you want to, you know, be part of this conversation, stay right there. We'll be right back after this. This is the Creative Industry Talk. My name is Eddie Okela, Faisal Chiwewa, and we'll be right back after this break.
Bubu that cannot stand on its own. Bubu must stand on the foundation of self-love. Now, by the time you start saying, buy this our own, it makes sense when you already love yourself. But we seem to have a country, and so they already had that foundation. The Nigerians are proud of themselves. If you ever interacted with any Nigerians, you'll be amazed. Nigerians, I've met Nigerians at airports, and they can be 4 Nigerians, and you'll think they are 50 Nigerians. There's this attitude they take that wherever we are, we must own that space. And we must own that space without apology. And let the world notice that we are there. We are present. So, and you've seen the same attitude in Americans. From their movies projected through so many things, through so much content, from the brand, from clothing to movies to music. So in a way, when you get exposed to that attitude long enough, you start to move your mindset towards them. So unless it's like a magnetic force of sorts. So we don't have our own magnetic force, and we spend too much time on negativity around ourselves. I think before we even preach Bubu, we need to have a campaign around self-love to reduce the negativity. Every time we see each other doing something amazing. Oh, Eddie has just done this. But he's not doing this other thing. But this other thing is lacking in his thing. Instead of focusing on the good stuff he has done, that's what those people are doing. Even the bad stuff is there. But how often do you see For example, there are street people in America. The whole world knows. Right in California, in the biggest economy in among the U.S. states, there are street people. They call it, there's those areas in Hollywood, I think, called Skid Row, where the street people are not any different from our street.
They're even worse than ours. And these hours here are better. We have food. There is very difficult.
Yeah, you go. But they keep away from that. They even try as much as possible to keep cameras away. It's only the internet today because that is enabling us to see those things. But these have been there for so many years. How much attention have we given to Hollywood content? But we've never seen all of that. So I think for Boo to make sense, and for Boo, it needs to stand on the foundation of self-love. We need a campaign around loving ourselves and reducing the negativity, and then we can talk Boo.
Welcome back from that break. This is a Creative Industry Talk. My name is Eddie Okela, and of course in the studio is Faizo Chiwewa from the Bayimba Cultural Foundation, and we are discussing the New Africa-France relationship. What does it mean? There's a conference that happened in 2021 in Montpellier, and Ugandans attended that. Many Africans, 3,000 people from African continent attended that. And of course the New Africa-France Summit, what does it really mean for Uganda's creative industry, particularly in performing arts industry? What does it mean? Are we taking advantage of that? And of course, we're hosting Faizo today, and as a resident panelist to discuss this. Faizo, welcome back to the program. Sure. Before we went for a break, we were breaking the, are we ready for this new relationship going forward? Is our content being prepared towards that direction? We want to tackle this a little bit more. The French may have talked about this, and at the point where we were going into a break, you talked about the territory is not Paris. It's not just Paris. It extended to where the French, the Francophone, territories, so to speak. Colonies, where people are speaking French, and it is a language. And I've been meeting people from Guadeloupe, been meeting people from different other places, the islands, and everybody's talking about this is a good place for us, a good start for us. But I want to just pick your mind from the person who attended the conference, the summit in Montpellier. The African presidents were not invited, but the young people from Africa were invited. And we know very well from the African perspective that sometimes we focus a little bit more on politics than the content that comes with. What was the sense? Do you think rather that the African president will support their own creative arts industry towards this?
They don't have a stake in it. I think I don't do politics, I'm never interested in the game, but I also know that when it comes to these kind of initiatives, the government's role is very limited. It's only them doing what they are supposed to do or what they should have been doing already, like making sure that the regulations are good, copyright is implemented, and intellectual property is protected. These are the government responsibilities, but they have no stake in the implementation of a partnership. If I want to do a collaboration with a French producer or a French artist, I can contact them on email, and if there is any opportunity for support from the French embassy or the French government or FD, that's our conversation. The government has no stake in it. I think here, for me, what I would like to emphasize on is to see how do we identify the territories, the areas that we can engage in as performing artists or producers or programmers. I think when we talk about the performing arts, as you say, that it's not only music, it's not only theater, but there are so many other things. And how do we know that within France or its territories, there are opportunities for all these different art forms? Which areas support what kind of art forms? Because France is diverse, and also with its territories, but there is a lot of areas that are more known for different things. For example, if you want to do like a market, you know, there is a Midem, which is like Doa Doa. It's one of the biggest French music market. And do people know about Midem? Do Ugandan musicians know about Midem? Or they might have heard of Doa Doa, but do they know that there is a bigger Midem? Now that there is an opportunity for this exchange and say, how can we start preparing our musicians to be able to showcase at Midem? Because it's an opportunity, and now they have even opened the African version of Midem, which has been running online for 2 years. So there is that opportunity of us identifying where can we go, where can we take our content. There is Babalmed in Marseille. It's also a big market that also takes care of performing arts artists from Africa. Joel has performed there. He has had opportunities.
This is Joel Sabunja.
Joel Sabunja has been there. So it's these are some of the areas. Then when we go to theater, there are theater festivals. There are installation, video mapping, events and festivals. There are so many fashion shows. Paris or France is known for fashion. How can we work with people like Stella Tar to start really, because she was there, she knows where to talk to, how to engage. She's in the fashion industry. How can we start tapping into that connection and relation and start building our fashion designers to start showcasing more in France? So these are the things I think we need to start cultivating and making sure that our artists, our performing industry is aware of these opportunities. But most of the time, when you talk about these opportunities of performing arts, so people mostly think about music, performing in a club or performing. No, we need to go deeper and also trying to discover new forms of art, because France has a lot of new forms of art. There are so many initiatives that come from there. How can we make sure that our artists are prepared to tap into those opportunities and also widen their scope and know that if you're talking about theater and festivals and then there are so many big festivals of theater in France, and not only in France but also in the rest of Europe, where people are being awarded each year with lots of money, with lots of good productions. How can we know, how can they get to know about this, so that they only don't look at the Anglophone countries?
Okay. Talking of that, Faisal, you bring a very good perspective to it. And I actually want some people, if you're out there and watching this video, we want to hear from you. If you're performing arts, talent, please share with us your thoughts, your understanding of this new relationship. Do you understand what it means? Do you know what is expected of you to be able to be on the same stage with a French artist or performing art person? Do you understand from a French speaking countries artists performing art from that area? Do you understand what they are doing to meet the expectations of the Anglophone speaking countries in Africa? Do you understand what is expected of you? Faisal, talking of that, it appears that many of our conversation here normally are not looking at crossing the border. We tend to be very comfortable at home here, and so some things come and pass us by. Some things comes like they announce this, and you find Ugandans are still not aware of this. And a few people like Faisal, like Peter, like Paul Charles Rukundo, and a few people like Divine Nabawesi. These are the guys who are more outspoken, outgoing, and looking for these things, like the Bobby Ogwal of this world. The people who went, and people who are opening up to these things. But when they come back, do they have this conversation with these people, with the Ugandans? Do Ugandans know this, or we are comfortable doing our things locally here and, everything else?
I don't know. I mean, I speak for myself.
But you're a programmer. You interact with people who are in the writing industry, people who are in the theater industry, people who are in the drama industry. I mean, a lot of us are doing things locally, and we seem to be comfortable. I don't see much of it going outside.
I think it's sometimes the excitement level. I mean, I had it as well. Not the non-sharing, but at the beginning, I think 15 years ago, when I just started traveling, I was always excited to show myself at the airport and take a selfie in the plane and then send it to whatever. I don't do that anymore. I think it's more like now I know I go somewhere because of a reason, and I'm always interested in going somewhere where I either add value or I'm getting something from there. These two things are very important, and that's why I'm always encouraging a two-way, or at least be contributive. Because for me, most of the time, if you want to go somewhere and you really don't have a reason why you're going there, then you're wasting your time and people's money.
Yeah.
So it's important that maybe not, but sometimes is that why people don't talk about things, because they are overwhelmed by the environment that they get themselves into, and they are not aware of how to deal with it. It's something that we all have to learn, because even me, it took me some time to know, if I go to Womex, what am I expected of? Why am I there? You know, and what am I going to get back? And what is worth my investment? And when we talk about investment, we're not talking about only the money we put in the tickets, but we're also talking about the time. You know, it's an investment. That opportunity cost is very important for the work that we are doing. So if people are not yet, they don't get used to this getting on the plane and off, and then once you get used to that, then you can start focusing on what you're meant to do. But once you, if you fly once a year,
Yes.
it's going to be difficult to get over it. But if you're flying every 2 weeks,
Yes.
then you'll be like, come on, why am I coming there? You know, so this is what this is the difference, and it's very honest. You know, it's very honest that if people are not used to this, being with different people, getting to know different spaces and getting exposed to different areas, then it's difficult for them to go somewhere where they have a reason. And I'm lucky, we are lucky these days that COVID has helped us, because so many times people used to travel to go to a workshop. I'm going to blah, blah, blah for a workshop on human rights. I'm going to go to that. And then they reach there, they go shopping, you ask them, what did you learn? Nothing. And it's because now that they realize, okay, we can do so much online, and we are also learning to also program things online. Yeah. So it's a whole different conversation. Maybe now we can start bringing things back. Yeah. But I think for me, what is important is that wherever you want to go, wherever you're going, it's important to know, what are you going to give? What are you contributing to that place, to that environment, to that space, to that meeting that you're going to, and what are you going to bring back?
Yeah.
And that will give us some kind of value in terms of making people understand that when you come back home and there's something that you've learned, you can share it with others.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're talking about the new Africa-France relationship, the summit. I want Tim to just put it up there so that I can take you through this a little bit more, and that's what Faisal is talking about. The new Africa-France relationship 2021 means a lot. What does it necessarily mean to, you know, for Uganda's creative industry in the performing arts, you know? And we're talking to Faisal Chiwewa from the Bayimba Foundations, fresh from that Montpellier, you know, summit in France. And where a lot of things were discussed on that stage. They're now saying we are open to come, open for you to come and, you know, showcase your art here. We want to do this now on an equal time and equal measures. It means that a Ugandan can go to France and showcase. Africans now, you know, operate with the Francophone countries, you know, or territories at an equal opportunity measure. As to whether it's going to be a reality, it's really time will tell. But are we preparing to go there? And you know, something that Faisal has been talking about here, very important. If you are used to boarding a plane once or twice, you know, your experience is not as good as an artist or a performing artist from the Francophone countries who are always boarding the plane. They don't go to take selfies. They go to do things at a different level. Faisal, that said, I want to come back to you for a moment. How do we get Ugandans, particularly from where we sit, you know, to start looking at this from beyond the selfies, beyond appearing in Paris and running around? I mean, I get the sense that of the 3,000 people who went to France, very few of them actually engaged themselves to discuss serious business. Most of them were running, for the first time, they were stuck and running to enter. Just the trend wowed so many of them and took away the attention from the business and the opportunity that could have presented itself to them. And many of them were spending a lot more time for tourism purposes, as opposed to trying to meet the new, you know, minister here or meet the new talent manager there from West Africa to crack the business so that they can board the plane a little bit more, you know, because this was paid for by the French government. It might not come back again for the next time. But how do we help our people here to know that when you get opportunity to go there, don't just go for selfies? No, it's a one chance given to you. Use it.
But I think, you know, to be honest, we all They call it amalo. You know?
Yes.
Now, and even me myself, I mean, I travel a lot, but sometimes if I go to a city like Paris, I'm like, oh, let me go to the Louvre, let me go to see the park, or let me go to see the Eiffel Tower. It's something we do, but you do it when you've at least done something that is meaningful, or you're going to do something that is meaningful for the purpose that you're there. You're not invited for tourism. You're invited for a certain reason, and not everyone that is invited is going to make meaning to the contribution or to contribute to the conversation that is going on. Maybe you're invited as a spectator, and that's your role. But how do you know how to navigate that? It's a process, to be honest, and it really needs someone to be aware of how to network, how to speak to people, how to pitch your works, how to engage with with people, and also how to do your background research. Who is there. If you're going in a conference hall where there are 3,000 people, where do you start from if you don't know who is there? You get what I mean? So you have to know, like, okay, if there so and so is there, Faizo is there, Eddie is there, what does Eddie do? Maybe we have some similar interests. I met so many young people from Africa who are doing stuff. There was a guy who was working in Burkina Faso, and he's doing recycling shoes. I'm like, what do you mean you recycle shoes? And like, when your shoe is broken, you give it to me, I repair it, I design it differently, and I sell it back to you. I'm like, that's really cool. And he was getting gigs. He was getting a lot of gigs. And there were like all these young fashion designers, all these young creative, entrepreneurs doing software, games and all that stuff. And I'm like, there is a lot of workforce. There is a lot of human capital that is coming up in this on this continent. But I think for me, what is really important, whenever I travel, and it's not always, but most of the time when I travel, I like to admire. And when I look at something and I like it, I try to imagine it if I can do it. In my area of business, not in road construction or architecture, whatever, but when I see a good performance, when I see a good art form, when I see, I imagine it being here. That's why over the 10 years, we've managed to create new forms of art here that people are thinking like, oh, that's impossible, like video mapping, street theater, like sound art, these kind of things that people have never, you go to a space and you find an artist has, created something that is unimaginable, and be like, how do they come up with this? How can I get this guy to teach some of my colleagues in Uganda? And that's why every time we have a new form of art that we are introducing, we invite like 10 to 15 people. But at the back of my mind, I know one or two will pick it up. Not everyone will like it or understand it. So I think if we I don't know how they call it, like okwegomba. I don't know how it's in English. I like to
go out there, look at things, imagine
and I admire them, and I'm like, I admire them and
see
like,
if you can come and do them here.
Yeah, it's the whole force that keeps me moving, because I know most of the things I like are not possible now.
Yes.
But I work towards that. And that's why I'm investing in my own space, whereby we will soon be having our own Bayimba Center, where we have invested brick by brick, dollar by dollar, shilling by shilling, on our own. Because I know that when you go to all these spaces in Paris and you find all these big museums, big theaters, in New York and Venice, wherever you go, do we ask ourselves, who built these buildings? Do we know how these buildings came to exist? Some of them were not even government buildings. They were by individuals from their own effort. And maybe later on, 50, 100 years later on, the government finds interest in them and starts taking care of them and opening them up to the public. So what are we contributing to the future of our spaces? We cannot start only thinking around tomorrow, today, and I find that a very big problem. We need to start thinking further. We need to start thinking what is going to happen 100 years from now. What are we going to show? Are we just going to show all these, small, untaught buildings around the city? There's nothing creative about it. But if we had the idea of admiring what other people have, and for me, it's very, very important. And I tell my colleagues, even my donors, like, don't tell me about space that we don't need space. We do need space from ground zero, and everywhere. But we, the people in the industry, have to learn to admire those spaces and create our own spaces that will be representing our country, our spaces, our art forms in the future. Yeah. So the issue of admiring is very, very important. When you have a chance to go to other places, look around and see. And just imagine yourself being part of this new initiation in your own country. Yeah. How would that be?
Well, we're going to take a break. Faisal is spitting fire right now that when you fly out, you must be able to imagine things on a bigger stage and a bigger scale. And of course, we're talking about the new Africa-France relationship, the summit that happened in 2021. What does it really mean to the creative industry in Uganda, particularly this week, today? We're talking about the performing arts industry. Are we taking advantage of it? Do we know much about it? Are we beginning to prepare our work towards that? We're going to take a break, and when we come back, Creative Industry Talk will tackle the final part of the show. We'll be discussing how do we take the advantage of this relationship to showcase our art, and Faisal will be sharing a few more as we close the show. So that I'll be right back after the break.
France is happy, joyful, and proud to be France. That's the first thing we can learn from France.
Yeah.
France knows all about France. France celebrates France. France celebrates its history, its cuisine, its language, its music, its culture. So when we want to have a conversation with France, it helps if we also come from a point of celebrating our history, our culture, our heritage, our food, then we can have it. Because the conversation involves exchange.
Yes.
So we have to have something to bring forward. And if we don't yet understand ourselves fully, if we don't yet celebrate ourselves fully, it's difficult to begin to share what
It is a Creative Industry Talk. Welcome back to the program. My name is Eddie Okela, and we're discussing the new Africa-France relationship. What does it really mean? This new relationship with Africa, what does it really mean to the creative industry? Particularly the performing arts is what we're discussing today. Why have we focused series on this Creative Industry Talk, talking about the meaning of this new relationship to the creative arts industry in Uganda and across Africa? It's because creativity is at the core of everything we do. Every time we wake up in the morning, we're talking about creative ways of how do we sell this product? How do we get product A to the market? How do we get product B to the market? How do we attract other people to come and sell our culture to them so that we can make money? You know, it's all about creativity. No one wakes up in the morning and do not know what to do creatively to attract money to them. Value is attracted to where there is value. And of course, Faisal is with me on the program today discussing that. And Faisal, welcome back to the program. Yeah. We are talking about, you know, how do we help Africans to, you know, start beginning to take advantage of this, think beyond this. You have been going across the world, you know, as a festival programmer. You, first of all, we want to break down, you know, the different forms of arts under the performing arts sector. And then you have been going around the world, you know, doing and performing and, you know, creating platform for people to perform as a programmer. What are the processes that you go through when you're picking and selecting that person to go there? And what kind of form of art do you take there? Yeah. I mean, we could be talking like this, and many people actually don't know that they need to prepare themselves towards putting themselves out so that they can now begin to interact with some of this new relationship that we're talking about. Yeah,
I think when you to do the kind of work that like I do, you need to educate yourself. We are unfortunate that we don't have a school of arts management here in this country, and I don't think anywhere in East Africa. So it's very difficult for someone to understand the scope of the work that we do. But if you want to learn, if anyone who is a programmer out there and who wants to really engage in these theories of learning to do things differently, you have to study. Like, I think the bottom line, the basis of this business is really to study culture economics. When you study culture economics, you will understand the process of understanding culture. It's a very public, good kind of approach.
Yeah.
You put yourself there as a sacrifice. The way our president said, sacrificed his hand and kept this to himself.
Yes.
You know, so you also have, no, it is serious. If you have to understand that when you learn culture economics, you understand the basics of arts management, the basics of programming. So when you do that, then you understand that when you put yourself into this job, you are sacrificing yourself for the better good of the rest of the industry. And that means that you're going to put your interests aside, and that's what many people don't understand, and put the interests of the industry to be your first priorities. When people ask me, why are you always working? Because I decided to make 99% of my time to work. And I decided not to be an artist because I realized that if I am an artist and I want to be an arts manager, I'll not be able to do the same. I put my 99% of the time in my work, and then the rest 1% I share it with the people next to me. So it's a difficult situation, and this is where it starts from. So you understand that the business is a public good. You have to, when you do that, then you can start looking at things. What do you do if you're a public servant? You work for the people. The people are your bosses. And if you are in a position like ours where you're supposed to kind of define the future of your own effort, then you'll start to understand that going out there, if you have the opportunity of going out there to see people and admiring their work and bring it down to your people, to share it with, to collaborate, to network, to connect with the rest of the world, it becomes a normal thing to do. Because you already understand why you are doing it. So for me, I think when it comes to these all relations, when it comes to this understanding of the performing arts, as wide as there are so many, but the thing is that, do we even understand our own subsectors of the performing arts? So if you're doing theater, how best do you understand theater? If you do not understand theater that much, but you're doing it, are you helping yourself to study? What kind of learning are you doing? So it's really about people also making an effort to educate themselves, making an effort to find out what is happening within their own territory, within their own area, and also trying to invest in themselves. People don't like to invest in themselves. They can invest, they think finding transport and lunch to go to a rehearsal is the only way to invest in yourself. But educating yourself and also trying to figure out, finding opportunities is a very good way of educating yourself. And I always ask people, like, if you spend at least 2 hours on Facebook and Twitter, why don't you invest that time in learning about your industry, about where you are and how you can better yourself? So it's really about learning. The performing arts are wide, there are so many, but people really can only benefit from them if they understand better and they can open their minds to make sure that they're only not looking at what they are, where they are, but they're also checking out to figure out what is happening around the world. And if you understand what is happening around the world, it helps you to kind of speed up your own process of developing yourself and doing better.
Faisal, would you share with us one thing that is very key as we wind up the show? Break down the performing arts. What are the different subsectors under the performing arts that we need to know? Because when you're talking about performing arts, some people may not even know that they're in the performing arts. Maybe they're in the wrong sector of it. Maybe they need to move to the next sector of it. Maybe they don't know. Maybe I'm there attracted because this is what is paying my bill right now. But perhaps my quality, my gifting is really into writing. And if I write, I make other people really look good. And therefore, I need to spend time writing and actually focused on the writing, and then I use this new Africa-French relationship that they're talking about, that Africa now is more open, to begin to seek opportunity to write for other people, cross-border writing, you know, so that my script can go out, then I can begin to travel across the world, as opposed to being a writer and at the same time I want to be a performer, and at the same time
I mean,
so can you break that for us?
No, I think, of course, you can be a writer and a performer, but okay, breaking it down, like, performing arts, we have music,
yes,
we have dance, and dance is also divided. There's urban dance, there's traditional dance, there's folk dance, yes, there is contemporary dance, and then we have theater, which we have traditional theater, like community theater. Then we have the high-end theater, yes, and then also we have like dance theater, which is more like you find the ballet contemporary performances of like the Nutcracker, yes, and all these Mary Poppins and stuff like that. Then we have fashion is a performing art. Even though someone thinking, I sit down, I'm not performing, but you create a piece and then you put it on stage for people to catwalk on it. That's a performance. Writing, creative writing, yes, because when you're writing, you don't write for yourself only, but you're writing for people to read and to act, or to
poetry,
create. Yes. Yeah, we have poetry. We have so I mean, there's a lot. We have video mapping. It's a performance, and sometimes you might think, because it's visual and video, you think it's a visual art. No, but it's a performance, because video mapping has become more interactive now, and it has become kind of like an engagement between a space and the people. So, and I really like to explore this, and this is something I'm really cultivating with my team. Yes. I want to start a festival for video mapping, like light up this whole city, and with different concepts and designs and stories, and but it's a very expensive art form, to be honest. And then what else is there? Street theater. There is and there's a difference between theater in a theater and street theater. When I introduced street theater here, I think 12 years ago, people thought that but it's a very mature way of acting, because you don't have a script, you don't have anything, you're kind of reacting to. You can have a thought or a theme in your head, but then you're kind of reacting to a space, to the situation. So you are spontaneously engaging with people and stuff like that. So the performing arts are wide, and they're really a lot.
Now, just give us a few. You've talked about quite a varied number of the performing arts subsectors under that. We want to just break it down. Do we have some of these form of arts in Uganda that are known? Because we might find that we're skewed to a very few of them, and we don't know really many of them that are quite very important that could take advantage of. Now that we're talking about, Africa being open to the Francophone, and the Francophone countries being open to the Africa.
I think the challenge with some of the art forms, they're quite expensive and exhausting. When you talk about like video mapping, I mean, if you're a video mapping artist in Uganda, where will you get a job? He's gonna give you a gig, So you are in it for a big.
That's why they were saying the new Africa France is open.
So
for this
I think, and also if you're a video artist here, you really. I mean, it will be really hard for you to get a gig in France or Europe, because they are at a whole different level when it comes to mind, when it comes to skills, when it comes to software, because all these things work with software. Every time there's a new software, there's a new, it's like being on these apps that people use all the time. Everything, all the time there's something new. And how do you keep up with that? So some art forms would be really difficult for some of the Ugandan artists. And it doesn't mean that it's easy for the European or the Americans. It's also difficult for them, but what happens with them is that, first of all, they have the knowledge, they have schools where they go to learn this, and it's recognized. It means that when they come out of those schools, they are respected because they learn that form of art. And then when they go out in the market and they don't have gigs, there is a system that helps them to survive. They are given some, capital or money to survive on, even if they don't have a gig. When they get a gig, they can declare that they got a gig, and then they don't have to claim money from the state. So
gig being business in
So if there was a system like that, and imagine Eddie or young people who are, and every year there's also these opportunities, like every year there's a lights festival, there is a video mapping festival, there's all these street theater festivals. So it means that someone is working, even though they know they are not going to get paid all the time, but they know at the end of the year there is something they look up to. And that gives them the motivation to create that kind of content. But if there is no opportunity, there is no platform for them to show their work, then it becomes difficult for them to be motivated.
That's why that's why now we're saying the new Africa relationship is opening that room for us to now go and say, go land, open up.
Of course, it opens up, but also we have to understand that we need to start working harder to level the ground, to start competing with the content, because also the French artists they also need gigs.
Yes.
So you're not going to come from here and start stepping on their toes because I'm coming from Uganda and this is where I saw the opportunity. They'll kick you out. So what is important is to work on merit, to work on your betterment or your development of your skill. So how do we develop our skills? How do we also start offering opportunity? We are not only looking at taking our artists to France, but we're also looking at bringing the artists to Uganda, the French artists. So for me, what is actually more useful, and this is what I've been doing over these years, is that when I see an art form or an artist and it's good, I bring them to my festival. For the reason, because I know taking one artist from here to France would cost me much more money, and maybe that person will just go and take selfies. But if I bring the other artists here, no, serious. If I bring the other artists here, then there is an opportunity for that artist to be seen by a wider number of other artists. And maybe from those, they will start looking, how did he do that? You know, look at the difference with Maurice Kiria. The Maurice Kiria of 10 years and the Maurice Kiria now is at a whole different league.
Talking of it, he was performing in Netherlands recently, and the place was packed.
No, look at
they seem
GNL.
to understand his music.
GNL has been good since he started his music, and now he's at a whole different level. Exposure, interacting, collaborating, looking at others and how they're doing things, and being in a space that supports the industry that he is in. So we have to look at what do we do as a people in our positions to admire what others have done for their industries, and then that will give us the opportunity to start nurturing our own industries. But if we only look at problems and money here, pressuring people for support when you know they can't give it to you, but you just need to also work on yourself, be able to deliver and create the work that can take you to another level. And that comes with admiring others.
So it's basically what you're saying, Faisal, in summary, is that yes, the new Africa-France relationship is there, but it's not going to be a silver plate platter. I mean, it is still possible that people who are coming from France can take advantage of you because you don't know it and still tell your story their way, and there's no problem with it because it's open now for everyone to do. That's what you're saying, right? Wow. Faisal, thank you very much for coming to the program today. We really have to bring this to a close, but we want to say thank you, and we want to encourage all those people out there to be part of this conversation going forward, and of course take this advantage of some of the things Faisal is talking about and begin to widen your scope, your horizon, your thinking capacity, your creative capacity. And, be close to people like Faisal, be close to people who went to France. Ask them, what did you learn from France? How can they take advantage of it? There are many. Uganda, I think, had over 20 people that went. And I think these 20 people are back. If they can share as much information, that would be very great. And Faisal, one last thing as you go. You've talked about GNL, and I think that there is a new Nsimbi band that was created after 5 years of being in America. He's back in East Africa, and I think it launched a new product this year. Are we going to see this new product, make its way programmed on Bahimba?
I don't know. I haven't had a chance to have a conversation with GNL. I know he asked me some months ago for a meeting, but I haven't really had. I've been also busy. But I think it's I admire the work. I admire the level of creativity and the maturity in it, and I think it's one way of returning that kind of talent to our country to inspire other young people. And I think he has a mission to also engage more young artists to learn from him, to be helped by his work that he's doing so that they can also move another step forward. So that's really the spirit of Ubuntu, the spirit of nurturing others, because he's been nurtured. He's gone through a process whereby other people have helped him, and now he's coming back to help others. I think it's a very genuine thing, and I'm looking forward to working with him, inshallah.
Wow. And thank you very much. You've added from there. So I asked that question because if somebody's doing something important, I think that it's important for us to actually be able to support them, to make sure that, you know, we give them opportunity to be part of that. And I think GNL right now has that form of art coming. There's Kinobe who has a new thing and is thinking of coming back home and showcasing it here. Are we going to see some of this new art coming back to
it's fascinating. It's fascinating because what has been happening is that most of the people, they had nowhere to go.
Yes.
You know, like Kinobe, you know, if he comes here, where is he going to perform?
Yes.
Except in maybe at Ndere Center, which is, you know, might be not ideal for his sound.
Yes.
The National Theatre is too small for him.
Yes.
So we need to start thinking for our artists and start, and we need to start thinking like, okay, even if JNL wants to put up a concert, where? Serena, that's not a concert place. Okay, we use it because it's what we have. You get what I mean? So we need to start thinking for our artists, like if we have this talent and we need them, we appreciate them, how do we start planning and preparing for them? And that's not a responsibility of only us in the performing arts industry or the programmers, but it's a responsibility of everyone in the planning, the government, in all this stuff. We need to start looking at all these people, even for example, all these young kids they are sending out to work in the Middle East. What do we plan for them? Okay, let's go, they work for 2 years and whatever they collect, when they come back, what do they find? What are we planning for them? I think it's important that we know, okay, when you send someone to acquire a skill, you have to make sure that when they come back with that skill, they find where they can practice that skill. You get what I mean? So if we have all these great musicians, the Kinobes, the Ntare Guma Mwine, we have the, you know, JNL now, we have Oscar, we have so many in contemporary dance, in film, in theater, you know, they are all out there making headlines. The Daniel Kaluyas, they are making headlines. When they come home, what do they find?
So it's basically an opportunity for everyone who is investing now to say, let's invest in a bigger platform.
I was actually thinking, you know, recently I was driving around and I saw all these Sudil buildings putting up, and I'm like, because he's an investor and he has an opportunity and he has so many stuff that he's working on in his head. But does the Capital City Authority sit with this guy and tell him like, okay, you're an investor, you're a real estate investor, but this is our plan as a city. As you're thinking of building a hotel here, a mall here, can you also work with us, you know, to create some of the things that we want as a city? So that because it's your space, it's your investment, but these are some of the ideas we need for this city. You get what I mean? Can you think around, instead of building 10, 15 hotels, can also build a theater here? Can you also put a black box here? Can you put a studio here? Can you add it in your plan? That would be really smart, you know, because he's already investing. He's putting in, like I see him, he's adding another wing at Kabira. What if, you know, that space, I would imagine putting a theater there. Instead of those box rooms, you know, putting a theater there. One of the halls and making it perform. Because
you're now speaking like a performing artist, a programmer,
Like you have a hotel here, and then people can stay there, and then you have a performing space here. You know, it's
where
in the
people
middle.
can actually come.
Exactly.
It creates that ambience.
And then you can see that, you know, you put one in that area, Bokoto, serves in Tinda, serves whatever, and then if he's investing at Simba Manyo, now he owns it here. Then you can also, you know, put something like that supports that community there. You know, you plan with the city. I wonder whether they have this conversation, because I don't see it happening.
Perhaps we need to bring this conversation there. I mean, well, the Creative Industry Talk is meant to bring the policymakers together. And we've been trying to get the policymakers to come to basically have this conversation with the creative minds, the policy people who are in the policy business, to say, hey, come together and let's have a conversation. Maybe we need to engage some of these people. Perhaps some of these things are not out and they are not aware. and it's something that we need to think through. But well, thank you very much, Faisal.
Welcome.
First of all, for coming to the program today. We've got to spread love. No. The spread love is spread from here, and then you spread the love outside to the rest of the people. And we want to say thank you for coming, and looking forward to having you again back on the show, and of course visiting Lunkulu. If you haven't visited Lunkulu Island, please do. And Faisal has an amazing place there in the island just between Buikwe and Mukono. Please visit Lunkulu Island and see the new theater and some of the fantastic stuff coming into that forest in the island, and of course you will be amazed. That is the moment that brings us to the the close of the Creative Industry Talk today. Until next time, we stay blessed, stay focused, stay creating, stay creative, and take advantage of the opportunities available to you, and of course stay away from the disease that might destroy you before you achieve your dreams. Edio Killer, Faisal Chiwewa, signing out.
Welcome to Slam Dunk Basketball Talk on HTV, House of Talent Television. My name is Ateng Emmanuel. 2022, new year, new things, and hopefully this time around the league will resume and we won't have any more problems like we did the past 2 years. Well, in the studio with me today is a championship coach. He coached our Savior Basketball all the way to the finals and all the way to the championship. In the house with me today is Moses Okwera. He's one of the guys I've seen who really develops talent. He takes players from zero and leads them to a place where they need to be. Moses, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you, Emma.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
Slam Dunk, man, it's hot. It's really good to be here, man.
Yeah, I like how you said it's hot. We'll actually start from there. When the league resumed, the NBL failed to resume last season, but the D-League, the first and the second division, decided that they should resume their games, and it actually happened. The ladies didn't have the same opportunity for their league to be resumed, but you guys went ahead and said, you know what, it doesn't matter what FUBA is saying, what NCS is saying, we're going to resume the league. What was the mentality behind you guys actually going forward with it, seeing that the NBL itself, being the top tier in the country, did resume? What was the thought process behind that?
Actually, we have to thank the lower league management, the LLMC. They did a great job because, first of all, they asked which teams were available. Because the rule was, if I had 7 or 8 or 9 teams, the league would resume. And actually, both Div 1 and Div 2 boys team
Yeah.
put up the numbers. That's where it all started.
Yeah.
So, and in NBL, they didn't, and the ladies, they didn't put up numbers.
Yeah.
So that's where it started from. So Div 1 and Div 2 had numbers.
Yeah.
So when they had numbers, they said, okay. They wrote to teams and said, teams, all the teams that have confirmed, are you ready to play?
Yeah.
They accepted. So that's where now
Yeah.
lower league division had to resume because the players, the teams were available because they thought maybe since being lower teams and there's too much of COVID and, you know, tests and what, they think they'll pull out, yeah.
But I mean, what does that say about the NBL teams? Because considering, we're supposed to look at, in relation, the NBL here is like the NBA, you know, in America, and they're supposed to be the leaders in Ugandan basketball. Teams like the City Oilers, teams like KIU, JKL decided to pull out, and it was the same rule. If they had a certain number of teams, then the league would have continued. Okay, but these big teams pulling out, what does that say about the NBL? Is there some unseriousness that needs to be checked?
I think it was, man, COVID hit everyone hard. And if you look at most the teams you've mentioned, City OL, KIU, JKL, they kind of being professional or semi-professional. They had players on contracts and, you know, they have to pay them. And COVID, and most of these teams are owned by individuals. They don't have sponsors. Or maybe City OL, they have sponsors. But you know, also business was slow. So financially, these teams were hit hard. It was really tough for them. And that's why they couldn't come back. The league couldn't be there. Even me myself, I couldn't believe we'd play. Because I realized COVID, you have to go for testing and all this. It's really expensive. Spending 50K on a player instead of giving that 50K to the player to enjoy it, you know. So it was it's financial because the players not. COVID has been there. You have to play. You have to pay the player, and he's not on court. So most teams looked at it and was like, no, we don't have that money. It was financial. That one, I can't lie or what. It was a financial issue. So that was the issue.
So speaking about financial issues, most of the guys I've had on the show, okay, we always ask them this question, looking at FUBA as the entity that actually is responsible for basketball in the country. Over the past 2 years, of course, with the COVID and the lockdown, really basketball hasn't been happening, and you know, finances going into testing and all these other things. Then you had the national team coming up, and they needed finances for that. Also, the ladies ended up missing their qualifiers for basket, and it seems like financial issues have always been a problem for FUBA. Whether it was during the lockdown or even before that, you know, people have always been complaining, you know, there's not enough finances in FUBA. So, according to you, do we have a financial problem in FUBA, or there's a certain underlying problem that we are not seeing that actually leads, you know, to this financial issue?
I think I will not say there's a financial issue in FUBA, because I don't know what takes place there. I think I'll talk about on the side of like managing a team or something. Most of these teams don't have sponsors, and you see when you have a league or when you have a team, there must be strategy for sponsorship to come in. And I was talking to, I think, one of I think a company. Our league was kind of like long, and there's no mileage and, you know, stuff like that. But since media houses have been coming in, because for a corporate company to invest, they must have value for money. They must have that mileage. So I think the marketing department of the federation had to do that, like to put the game out there. yeah, the game out there so that sponsors can come in.
Yeah.
But without that, we can't really get
Yeah,
finances.
that's
You
true.
also know that.
Yeah.
So where does it start? Basketball must get a home.
Mm.
If we get a home, maybe like YMCA,
Yeah.
the fans, then we do marketing. You guys are doing a great job of putting out basketball talk shows, because when we talk about this,
Yeah.
and maybe there's a corporate companies are following in,
Yeah.
we'll get brands coming in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this is going to be the problem. We have to market because the game is there.
Yeah.
The referees have improved. The coaches are there, but we have to put in the game out there so that
Yeah.
we can get sponsors.
Yeah.
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 So, talking about that and sponsorship, it has always been a very big problem. It has always been a very big problem when it comes to teams actually marketing themselves, because we have, before the MTN sponsored the league for some time.
Yeah.
Then we had Airtel at a certain point.
Yeah.
Then we had, I think, Tascalite sponsoring a couple of tournaments there.
Yeah,
Then
after the playoffs,
Yeah,
yeah.
playoffs. Then we had also the tournament that just concluded, the Power Basketball Tournament. Betway was there. You had Club that was there. And it seems like marketing has always been a very big issue when it comes to teams, because most of the teams I see don't even have a marketing department.
It's not there.
Yeah, it's not there.
It's not there.
All right. So it's very hard for teams to market themselves. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, our savior, basketball, okay, has been around not for that long. We can say it's a young team, okay,
Yeah,
full of young players.
since
Also,
2015.
yeah, since 2015. Okay, that's about 6 or 7 years. All right.
Yeah.
Now, for a team like that and the teams in the D League, okay, what can the LLMC do to make sure that it's not the management that is marketing the teams, but it's the team themselves that start to market themselves? Because if each team becomes a product, okay, it then pushes into the whole of the division. Okay, so what are some of those things you think that the lower division teams should do, okay, to market themselves?
Of course, one of the things that you have to do is we have to utilize the media.
Yeah.
Because if you have a team like our savior, you need to use the media platform.